the reason that I'm here is because, the club is seeking change.
He said, well, whether you come or not, you're going to see a completely different Spurs team under me.
My hope and my desire and what I'm going to try and do is give our supporters hope and belief that we're going to embark on something special.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Stetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 207, and we finally have some good news to discuss in the world of Tottenham Hotspur. I'll be damned. Alongside to do it this week is Caroline. She's at CG Stefko. Caroline, what is up?
I'm just happy that the club is not a total shambles after yesterday. Got two really important wins, I would say. And, otherwise, just I was enjoying the American soccer finals yesterday and hanging in there with my allergies. So that's all that's been going on for me.
Allergies have been a struggle on this end as well, but we are not allergic to what Tottenham is doing on the football pitch right now. And neither is my good friend Todd. He is Mr. TC at TC_Kasho. Todd, what is up, my man?
Any day, brother. Any day that you can have Pep Frattiola, the worst loss of his professional career, is a good fucking day. We smashed him. I can't wait to talk about it.
We are going to dive into Tottenham Hotspur 4, Manchester City 0. Holy crap. Just what you would expect from Tottenham Hotspur, to lose to Ipswich on the back of an international break and then come back and smash City and hand them their 5th straight defeat. We're also going to talk
like we drew it up, Andrew.
Just like we drew it up. We're also going to talk about the women's victory. They are back in the win column in a League Cup win over Aston Villa, a 1-0, and we'll talk a little bit about the difficulty in trying to watch that match as well. That is probably the only downside of the week. Before we do any of that, we do want to remind everyone to head over to digitalspurs.com for your new Tottenham merch, t-shirts, hoodies, crew necks, hats, and much more. We love Digital Spurs. They are running 15% off right now. So get over there, place an order, holiday
Their
gifts.
Holiday merch, Andrew, the holiday merch this year absolutely smashed it. Danny does an incredible job.
Danny really, really crushes. I just saw a new Dominic Solanke fit that he's got going as well. Praise be to the striker who is doing work. Danny's also doing work. Danny's crushing it. Go to digitalspurs.com, place an order today, get some new merch, and let them know that we here at the Tottenham Depot sent you. Guys, I want to start. Look, Scott's not here with us today. I know he had a birthday party to go to, but I want to bring Scott into the pod because it'll take us back in the time, the timeline a little bit to last week's podcast when we started talking about coming back from the international break and how Manchester City were going to fare against Spurs. They were reeling. Let's go back and listen to just a brief bit of last week's podcast featuring myself and Scott talking about the Manchester City match. But at least we get to look forward, guys, to next week, where Spurs travel north to face a very struggling and defeated Manchester City at the Ethiad. Manchester City has, of course, lost 4 straight matches, which started with Spurs defeating them in the League Cup a few weeks back, that 2-1 win, then spiraled into City going and losing to Bournemouth in the Premier League in their next match. Then they went on the road to Sporting and lost 4-1 in the Champions League. And then their last match before the international break was a 2-1 defeat away to Brighton. This will be the first home match for Man City since a 1-0 win over Southampton on October 26th. They have lost 4 straight. So at least Spurs have City right where they want them, right? They're going to go up there and continue this run of form for City, right? Yeah? No? Any confidence in that? No?
We're getting absolutely smoked. Let's just come out and say it. We are going to get run over in this match. That's all I have to say.
There you have it from the mouth of babes. Scott said we were getting absolutely smoked, and I love Scott, but my goodness, and he's not here to defend himself, which is the best part. And he's probably not going to hear this because I guarantee you he doesn't listen to the podcast. But instead, it's Tottenham Hotspur 4, Manchester City 0. Caroline, what's your immediate reaction to this match? Let's just take it on broad strokes before we really dive in. This was, for me, it was actually kind of hilarious. I have to be perfectly honest. I laughed multiple times watching this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of startling how easy it felt. after I would say like maybe the first 10 or so minutes where City, had some sustained attack and I was feeling a little bit nervous about the defense. But after that and after the goals started coming in, it kind of just felt like, this is what we do against City time and time again against all, reason or logic. Although I do have to say in this particular case, this was a pretty weakened City team. And I know we had our own injuries too, but I think, it sounds crazy to say this, but we were a little better equipped for the absences that we had than they were, their midfield being the obvious example. So that helped.
Well, to be fair, I mean, they've had this run now where, of course, it started with us in the League Cup defeating them, and now this is their 5th straight defeat, and they've fallen after the Liverpool victory over Southampton this morning. They've fallen 8 points off the pace at the top of the table in the Premier League. I get that they're missing Rodri and they're missing, Erling Haaland is, I don't know, all of a sudden just not good.
Missing in action.
He had multiple opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net yesterday and could not. But Todd, I'm actually a little bit more on this was Tottenham just balling its ass off part of this.
Yeah.
Like, this was a really great performance too.
This was peak Tottenham. This is Decky came out after a game. I don't remember where it was, but he came out and he says, this is Tottenham. When we're playing at our best, we can score 4 goals in 4 minutes. And this is the type of, you saw that with the Maddison goals in their close succession. Like you can see what this team is capable of when we're all working together. This is the first time that I've seen Maddison and Kulusevski on the pitch at the same time effectively this year. And I feel like one of them goes missing when the other one is playing well. And the fact that both of them shined today lets me know that Ange even said it, and we'll come on to his comments, but he even said, this is showing us that we are going in the right direction for this project, and I'm really excited about it. So I don't want to belabor the City doesn't have all their horses point, because nobody lets us talk about that when we're missing Romero and Van de Ven. And we had lost 4-0, nobody would have been like, oh, well, the center back pairing of Romero and Van de Ven really was Tottenham's downfall. It would be how shit Tottenham played and how amazing City was. So what I'm saying over here is that as much as personnel matters, when you literally are backed by a city state or a country state or whatever it is, a principality, if you will, I don't want to hear about how you didn't have the horses to compete against lowly Tottenham Hotspur at home. Enough. Like, I'm looking at this, Andrew, and saying, this is Ange in 5th gear, and it was sexy.
I fully agree with you. And I think that the center back pairing is, I think, what we are all most fearful of. I do want to dig into the lineup because there were some interesting choices made. I think the center back pairing being what it was is what we thought it would be, just because of the injuries to Romero and Van de Ven. And those two guys, Caroline shared a Blue Sky post with me a little bit before we started recording from a user named Lunch Enjoyer, which I really like the username there. But says your manager goes to the Ethiad and plays terrorist ball with 5 center backs. My manager rolls up with 1 center back who can't use his left foot and a 50-year-old whose nickname is Gentle Ben and recreates Prime Barca. Like that's hilarious. And it's also, there's so much truth to that. Those two guys in the middle, while not flawless and not perfect, performed so above what they would have been expected to by any reasonable thinking fan prior to this match. And the 11 as a whole, I thought, was constructed in such a way. And I want to talk about, what you kind of mentioned, Todd, too, with both Kulusevski and Maddison. This was a little bit of a surprise to me to see Kulusevski playing back out on the wing. But after that first 10 minutes, I thought, oh, this is genius, because Spurs are going to be needing hold-up play from all parts of the pitch. And that is
the best hold-up player we have.
It's Dejan Kulusevski. And that is something that he can provide from that area of the pitch, which is from that right wing-ish area of the pitch. But he also slid back into midfield and used those spots and allowed Porro to overlap. Like, there was so much right with this decision. And the job that he got out of Sarr and Basuma in support of that midfield was just brilliant.
And I know that we have not been shy about our criticism of one Yves Bissouma on this podcast, but I have to shout the man out for doing some standard Yves Bissouma business within the first 15 seconds of this game, tackling somebody from behind and getting a ridiculous yellow card. I'm sure you would have been, if I was a fly on the wall of you watching this game, how angry you were at Bissouma when that happened.
Coming off of, and we're going to talk about Rodrigo Bentancur a little bit later on the pod, but coming off of what we know is going to be an absence for Rodrigo Bentancur, for Bissouma to do that within the first 20 seconds of this match, I thought to myself, you absolute idiot. You freaking Muppet. Why are you going to get tossed from this match when 100%. You know you don't have the depth there? So, yes.
100%.
Stand on business, because what you're about to say is completely accurate as well.
Absolutely flawless for the rest of those minutes. Flawless. I couldn't have asked him to do anything more than what he did. He didn't lose possession in the way that he normally does. He didn't make unforced errors with his passing in the way that he has sometimes come to do under Ange. Absolutely flawless. No more reckless tackles. I couldn't speak more highly of him in that role. We didn't talk in game about Ben Davies and Radu Dragusin at all, save the one standard Dragusin pass out of bounds. We didn't talk about missing Romero and Van de Ven at all in that match. And that, I have to say, Andrew, is a fucking testament to Yves Bissouma and to Pape Matar Sarr in the way that they handle business in the middle of that midfield.
And it was not a double pivot. This was not Spurs sitting back and trying to counter. After those first 10 minutes, Caroline, Spurs were able to kind of play the way that they wanted to, and played through City. Like that, I think was what was most impressive to me. And it was all fundamentally started by just sound, solid defending. And it came from everyone, and it came collectively, and it came as a team. And I think that's what was so important, including from the goalkeeper, who I know you want to heap praise on, because he was damn good as well.
Yeah, and it's not like he had to make any, kind of world-class saves in this game, because
he had a couple though. He had a couple really nice saves.
He had nice saves. I feel like he had a very solid performance. Like, he did exactly what we needed him to do. And I'm not trying to downplay it. Like, I thought he had a great game and thought he was in contention for player of the match. I honestly did.
I thought he was the second or third best player on
I mean, to be fair, you can point at a lot of people on a pitch and say that they had a player of the match performance. We were flying. But I mean,
there were a lot of candidates in this game.
Vicario made saves that a top tier goalkeeper has to make on the road against the league champions. And he did those things.
And he did.
I can't say shit about that. Sometimes he's looked silly in our matches against lesser competition, and you're like, fuck, is this our guy, really? And then he shows up in matches like that at the Ethiad and stonewalls fucking Haaland on numerous occasions. And also shout out to Cross Barrio as well. That definitely helped in that effort. So
Cross Barrio, that's a new one that I had not heard, and I very much enjoyed that. Look, I think that the way that Ange put together this 11 deserves, and like I said, because he knew it was going to have to fundamentally come from the we're going to talk about the goals. Like, don't get me wrong. This was a 4-0 victory that was sound and like emphatic in every way, shape, and form. But I really wanted to start with this conversation about the defending, because I think everything started from that, especially when you go back and watch those first 10 minutes, which I did this morning. After watching the women's match this morning, I watched the first 10 minutes again, because I wanted to relive how stressful those 10-15 minutes were until Spurs really got their footing. But Ange spoke after the match yesterday about this kind of defending center back pairing and the way that they all work together, and I think it's worth a listen.
I thought they were all great. You have to be against City, because obviously they got big Erling up there, but the way they deliver the ball, the areas that they kind of consistently probe, you've got to be focused the whole time. And I thought Ben and Radu really focused. I thought Vic behind them was really positive as well, his positioning and the way they communicated. And like I said, Biss was important to that. I think the key for us was we had to do it as a collective today. I think when you play City, you can't rely on individuals to kind of sort of find solutions out there. And collectively, I thought we defended really well. But credit to those two guys, and not just defensively, but like I said, we had to play out from the back. It was, it was the only way we were going to sort of deliver balls to the areas we wanted to. And both Ben and Rada didn't shy away from that. It wasn't always easy. But they consistently were looking for the ball and looking for us to play out from the back. So credit to those guys.
I personally have no idea what it's going to look like going forward in the center back pairing. I know Van de Ven's probably going to miss a few more games, and who knows about Romero. But man, when you can play Radu Dragic on the right and Ben Davis on the left, they can get stuck in and put in a performance like this. Like, it excited me more than watching many Spurs matches have, because you knew it was going to be hard. You knew it was going to be a challenge, but you also saw very early on that those two guys, and again, with the surrounding pieces and the collectiveness of a full unit wanting to work together and defend, that's the kind of shit that excites me about this game and about this team and the way that they're able to do it. Look, Radu Dragic, I even wrote down in my notes, Dragic had a couple of moments still on the ball where I'm like, oh boy, like there's a little nerviness there. But when he plays on the right side, I can see a center back there. It's not a ball playing Ange ball, get forward, plunge forward offensively attack, but it's a guy who can defend and who can get the ball where it needs to.
He's a very effective heels on his 6-yard box center back. And when he's put in that position, like when we're soaking up pressure against City, he does an exceptional job. But so does fucking Davinson Sanchez.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't pay stupid amounts of money for this amazing kid who could have gone to Bayern for him to stand with his heels in the fucking 6-yard box, Andrew. I need to see you play the ball. I need to see you not piss down your leg every time you're getting pressed by a forward.
I don't know that he's going to be that guy for you, but in this instance, he was pretty good.
But what I'm saying is there are people in and around the Tottenham camp that are in and around Radu Dragic's camp that are like, oh, this guy has a level of importance that needs to be respected. Well, learn to pass a fucking football, and then we can talk about it. That's all I'm saying.
If he puts in more performances like that yesterday, then he'll get more playing time. Because
my problem is that we're not going to play like that against most teams in the league, Andrew. Because most teams in the league aren't fucking Manchester City. We're going to hold on to the ball, which means he's going to have more opportunities to receive the ball in space and follow the aforementioned pattern of urination that we've seen over an extended period of time.
I really wish we could use pattern of urination as the pod title, but it wouldn't fit for what's happened this week. There was an instance yesterday. I wrote this down specifically, and I just wanted to mention it. I can't exactly remember at what point in the game it was, but there was a ball that was kicked deep toward Dragic's side, and it was clearly going to go out of bounds, but he got there in time to stop the ball and like kick it back to Vicario and recycle the play. But instead, he just stood by the ball and let it slowly trickle out of bounds and then
down his leg.
Threw the ball in. Like you could tell he wanted the throw in rather than to have to play with the ball with his feet. It was very clear. I said
what I said.
That's who he is. And I'm agreeing with you. But at the same time, I want to heap praise on the guy because I thought the performance in this instance was really good. And obviously the same should be said for Ben Davis, he's Ben Davis. He's reliable as hell.
What did SofaScore say he got yesterday? I think it was like what was it? I don't know. Thought Mob, what are we getting?
Thought Mob has him at a 6.7, which is exactly where he lives. That's where he lives.
Up from standard business. I love every part of that. He honestly.
It also has him with a clean sheet by his name because that's what it is. I don't know.
Well, that's fair. It goes by Vicario's name, but I'll give that to you.
It goes by everyone's name because this is my point. The effort yesterday was a full team effort. It was a collective unit, and that's what excited me the most about this match was that this was not. Look, we're going to talk about James Maddison. We're going to talk about Dan Kulusevski. We're going to talk about Sonny, who I thought was really good as well. Like, we could talk about the guys going forward. As a unit, as a collective, as a whole, this match for me started with really, really good, strong defending and going forward from there. And, that's what I enjoyed. Everyone wants to talk about how Ange Postecoglou teams don't play defense. They're just all gas and no brakes. That wasn't this. This was playing Ange ball, but in a different way. And like, this was not A plan or a B plan or a C plan. This is a little bit down the rungs of what you would typically want to see out of Tottenham, but it worked so well. And it was like Ange punked Pep. I'm sorry to say it. He did. He punked him in this match.
He absolutely did. Decky posted something on Instagram, and it showed him celebrating one of these goals. I think it was the Pedro Porro goal. And he said, "The truth about to get loud," and just put a stadium next to it. And boy, I'll tell you what, I think we're about to see the inverse of what we saw from an Ange team last year. Last year, nobody knew what the fuck was happening for the first 10 games. And we blew the doors off of people. Like, oh yeah, watch this. Then, with some help from fucking Michael Oliver, but also, a variety of different things went wrong for us. And, everybody else caught on and caught up. And now, I think there's a reason why Ange is so confident in saying, I always win things in my second season. And we're starting, in my opinion, to see why. And that is, well, the league caught on to us, and now Ange has caught on to the league. And we're seeing what it takes to compete at a high level. And what I mean by that is, sure, you can point to the Ipswich Towns and to the Crystal Palaces of this season. And those certainly show that at that point in time, we weren't ready yet. And as a team, we weren't quite ready yet. However, when you look at the 3-0 at Manchester United and the win against Aston Villa and the 4-0 at City, if you judge this season by the quality of our victories, oh, they're impressive. And I think that what we're going to see as the season goes on is very much, to use an American football parlance, like a Nick Saban coach team is always better at the end of the season than they were at the beginning of the season. And I think that we're about to see the same kind of event horizon under Ange, and it's kick-ass.
I really sure do hope so. Like, I think this team continuing to get better is all I've really asked. And like, that's why some of I don't want to get fully into the reaction quite yet, but some of the reaction to this win set me off a little bit. And that's why the internet is just it's the bad place. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, just don't go on social media. I don't care if you've gone to new social medias, which I mostly have, that seem to be a little friendlier. Like, it still is just like, why can't we just be happy for 12 hours, 24 hours, maybe?
This is why we can't have nice things.
Well,
we'll get into that, but go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, even during the game, I was really kind of confused by how many people I saw online saying, I still don't trust that we're going to win this game. And this was when we were like 4-0 up. And I'm like, so we don't have to be performatively negative, guys.
I don't know, though. Okay, this is not performative, but I will say 2-0 at halftime, I was still very much like, okay.
I watched us piss that away against Brighton. You think I'm happy about going into halftime at the Ethiad with that? No.
There are scars there that haven't fully healed, and as Spurs fans, we know that their capability to, as Todd so eloquently puts it, pee down their leg, like they do it all the time. So like I won't say I expected it, but I certainly feared it, at least at halftime. Once the Porro goal went in 7 minutes into the second half, I was like, oh, they might actually do this. Like, I was a little bit more confident at that.
There's a lot of game left. There's a lot of fucking game left.
There's certainly
Tottenham. There's a lot of game left.
You know what, though? I think the difference between a game like this and a game like that Brighton match is that against Brighton, I think our players kind of had this mentality of our individual quality should be winning out, regardless of how we actually play. And I think when we're up against a team like City, even, missing several key players, they know that they have to be completely locked in and working as a team. And I think that's really the difference we've seen throughout this season. In the top matches, everybody's focused, everybody's locked in. And then we come up against the, so-called lesser teams, and we think we can skate by on individual quality. And that's obviously not been the case. So I think today in the game against City, we really saw the best of like selfless attacking Tottenham football, because if you look at each individual goal, it was just like players passing up not so good opportunities for someone who's in a better position. Like the Porro one is the perfect example. of
So
Solanke.
true.
He could have taken a shot. You know, he could have taken his chance, but he knew that Poro arriving had the better opportunity. So
I think
that's what I like to see from this team.
For me, honestly, it's a great shout, Caroline. And I think there's a couple of great points that you made there. The first one is when you're talking about the Poro goal, that looks straight off the training pitch to me. He didn't even look at goal, did Dom Solanke. He immediately turned for the guy crashing the box. And I was like, oh, shit, Ange ball. Anyway.
Well, and he had to get to the ball too, because the pass, you know, in that fast break situation, the pass was a little bit too leading. So he got there and was like, all right, what do I got? And it was great. It was
what
all
I'm
like
saying is that's straight off of the training pitch, because not every cross is going to be, you know, inch perfect like the first one from Decky, right? That one, you know, it ran a little bit. So Ange's, what do you do in that situation? You turn around and you find the guy crashing the box. Like it was sexual, that goal. It was ridiculous to me. Anyway. The other point that you made, Caroline, that I think is an amazing segue, Andrew, is to talk about the humility required for a victory like that. And I think that humility that we've seen from this team should start with James Maddison yesterday. He is the guy that for a lot of this season has been like, well, fuck, how come I'm not the guy? Yeah. I'm the guy. How come I'm not the guy on this team? And Ange is basically like, listen, because you're not playing like the guy, and you haven't since you came back. So until you do, we're not going to have that conversation. And I think Matters took a big helping bite of humble pie and brought his A game on his birthday and bought in, and the team replayed him. And you have to say on both of those goals that he scored, it was his individual hustle, focus, and determination that is the reason why they were executed in the way that they were. And I can't say anything better about that man and the way that he fit into the team yesterday.
You brought it up. Let's hear from Ange on James Maddison's performance.
I mean, yeah, lean spell. I mean, I thought he was really good for us earlier in the year, and then he had a couple of sort of flat games, but that's, I think the whole team has. But I also believe there's more in Matters, and like, I think that's on me. I always say, that's my role as a manager. If I'm not getting a maximum out of the players, the team, against Ipswich or individuals, then it's about sort of some self-reflection of, well, okay, can I do something different with them? But the thing about Matters was, he obviously didn't go away with international duty, so he had 2 weeks with us, and the coaches worked really hard with him, and he was working really hard at training, and I could just sense that he was, he was ready for a big game, and he hasn't sort of lowered his ambitions or his kind of levels of, the kind of player he wants to be. And it's about us giving him that platform. And it wasn't just his goals today. I thought he's important for us in the build-up because he was always looking for it in tight areas. And defensively, he worked really hard. So, credit to him. Like I said, I still think he's had a decent season, but it's like us as a team, we want to be more than that. We want to be more than just a decent team.
I have not been down on James Maddison this season. I thought he's had a fairly like Ange just said there, a decent season. He hasn't reached the first 10 games of last season when he first got here levels, but how could you? Like, the expectations for that would be astronomical and through the roof. But James Maddison, for me, was never benched. Like, this was just rotational stuff over the last handful of weeks and months, and Kulusevski playing out of his mind. But what we talked about earlier with the way that Ange was able to put together this 11 with Kulusevski playing on the right wing, where we've seen a lot of Brennan Johnson, who, by the way, also fucking scored in this match off of some fucking brilliance from Timo Werner of all people. Like, I don't want that goal to get lost either, because at that point the match was done and dusted. But James Maddison, this is what he is capable of at his peak. And Todd, you said it right before we listened to Ange there, like the determination, the willingness to, partner up with Son in the ways that he did on those goals. Like, it was just every little bit of James Maddison's game. You could tell he was up for it. It was his birthday. Happy birthday to the lad. Like, my goodness, what a performance. The 2 goals, like, you can take away the 2 goals and he still would have had an amazing performance. That's how good it was. Like, when you just looked at the spaces that he was getting into, the spaces he was creating, the defensive work that he was doing when it was required of him, there was nothing from his game that I saw where I was like, oh, James, what were you thinking? Like, I was blown away by it.
I mean, Nah, if you take away the 2 goals, he would have had an average-ass game. I'm not going to give it to
No,
him.
I
James Maddison,
disagree.
my issue with James Maddison is that we paid for him to come in and be Christian Eriksen. And he hasn't done that consistently, be it injury or otherwise, since he's been here. There's been fits and spells, but it hasn't been consistent. And we talked a few weeks ago on this podcast about James Maddison and about the things that were going. And I said, no, until I start see him finding the back of the net consistently, until I start seeing a free kick go in, I'm not going to say he's back. Well, on the last pod, when he banged in that sexy free kick against Aston Villa in the final moments and Ange gave him all the love, I ate crow on that and said, you know what? Here's James Maddison's back. And now we're seeing a brace against City at the Ethiad. The man's got 5 league goals to go along with 3 league assists. This is the James Maddison we paid for.
But, if you take out the free kick factor, would Eriksen have been the player that he was if it weren't for Son and Dele and Kane connecting with him so perfectly? No. I think that's the point here, is that if Ange Ball is working the way it's supposed to, we're not going to have just one guy. They all have to be the guy at different times. And Johnson is a perfect example there of coming in as a sub and still executing perfectly his role. So
I agree. And I'm saying that, and I think that that's a separate point that I want to come on to because it's a great one. And we've got a bunch of folks that kind of fit into that, which is wonderful. Going back to the Maddison versus Eriksen point, you knew that Eriksen had the ability to create for other players. But when Eriksen was presented with the opportunity to finish, it was magnificent in the way that he did what he did. And you think of the goal against Chelsea when we won at the Bridge for the first time in 30 years or whatever. You could think of the final goal at Wembley against Real Madrid to make it 3. And it's just Christian Eriksen had the ability to put the dagger in people's hearts. You can think of several goals in the waning minutes of games where he made something out of nothing. James Maddison has that in his locker, and we haven't seen it consistently up until this point for Spurs. And what I'm saying is that we're starting to see where he's coming down, and yes, he can find the sweet pass and the good layoff because that's what he does, but also if you leave him, he'll stick a dagger in your heart. And we got to see it. I'm excited because if he can stay healthy, this is who we need in order to make Ange Ball work.
I think that I totally get everything that you're saying. I also just think that there's a little bit of a false equivalency between trying to make James Maddison, Christian Eriksen. They're different types of players in some ways. I get that they play similar roles, but James Maddison is a way better presser than Christian Eriksen is.
Oh yeah.
And that's a big part of what Ange wants versus what, peak Eriksen under Pochettino wanted. It was a little bit more of a pick locks and find the right pass. And Maddison has some of that in his game for sure, but this is more Maddison's learning a little bit to play Ange Ball as he goes too. And he's done it through some health issues. He has not been fully healthy either. So I don't want to, I have never been James Maddison should sit for Dejan Kulusevski. I think they can coincide in the same team like they did in this match. And they can also do it, I think, when Kulusevski's playing further back in the midfield in a true midfield role rather than at right wing at times. I think it can work at times against certain opponents. It depends on the matchup, but
I think doable. Both Dejan and Maddison in this particular match didn't necessarily play one position. And sure. I think that there was
you can't when you play against Manchester City. You have to 100%. Be fluid.
When we're asking them to play something to play a little bit more rigidly, I don't know that they coexist in the same way that they do in a situation like this. But what I want to say is this is champagne fucking problems for Tottenham Hotspur, right? Oh gosh, which one of our incredible midfielders do we want to start this match, right? Fantastic news for us. What Caroline made a point to say, and I think that this flows into it very nicely, is that in an Ange system, the production is going to come from all over the place. And she's absolutely right. We're looking at James Maddison and Brennan Johnson with 5 league goals. We're looking at Solanke with 4 league goals, Son and Decky. You were looking at, all of these players with right around 8 to 10 goal involvements. Like, each one of our starting front 3 in this match against City had an assist.
Yep.
Like, we're looking at, and Andrew, you asked this question at the beginning of the season, where in the is all of this goal production going to come from? And here's your answer. And it's exciting.
Well, it's not only exciting, but it still is the highest scoring team in the Premier League. They have 27 goals in 12 matches now.
Plus that's 14 goal differential right now. Is that right?
Plus 14, which only trails the leaders, Liverpool, who are plus 16. You're 2 goals behind them in goal differential. Like, that's insane. This is Ange ball. And I know people, and that's like, I don't know if you guys have anything else specific you want to get into on the game or any players you want to shout out. Like, I thought Sonny was really good in this game. I also thought he was subbed off at the proper time because he looked like he had heavy legs. Like, I thought that was a really good sub by Ange.
The subs yesterday were
minute,
fantastic.
I think it was. The subs were, and he only made 4 of them, but they were all good. It was a good way to see it through. I don't know if there's anything else, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the reaction to this match, because everything, and again, this goes back to the social media is just the bad place.
Just before we get there.
Go ahead.
Before we get there, the Decky pass for the first goal.
Oh my God.
We talked about how incredible he was, but specifically that pass. Caroline chef's kissed it, and I don't know that there's a better superlative for that specifically, as we speak in emojis in 2024. But yes, no, it's 100% incredible to think about the fact that if you go back and listen to the commentary, the commentator was trying to get that ball, to will that ball out of bounds, saying the sentence, like, it's a ball that Decky chases but doesn't have the ability to track down. Decky absolutely backheels that to keep it in bounds, then shields the defender, like, get off me, looking like a power forward going to the rack, and then has the ability to shape up perfectly and drop that ball in a bucket that freezes Ederson and has the 2 center backs for City looking at each other, pointing fingers as Madison's wheeling away. Like, absolutely inch perfect stuff from Decky. Was incredible.
Well, and also his footwork on, I think it was the second goal in the build-up, was just like messy. Like,
that was the Poro goal.
No. That was the third goal.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I was just going to mention, because the way that he was able to keep that ball on his feet and still get it going forward and work his way around defenders in the middle of the pitch, it was just like he created that breakout out of nothing. He
nutmegged Gundogan, did a double shake on Foden, split 2 men on the side. I think I don't know if one of them included De Bruyne, but it might have. I'm not quite sure if he was on there yet. Sonny with the ping, and then Decky to be able to find Solanke around the corner to set up the Poro goal. And I went back and I looked at Dejon's stats this year, and they're not nearly as impressive as, say, Brennan Johnson's or James Maddison's as you look at it. But it's 100% the hockey assist, Andrew.
Yeah, it is. And I was actually going to bring a different sport into it, because you said the word box out a minute ago, and it reminded me, Decky has a very basketball player like
he's Luka Doncic.
He's Luka. That's exactly the name that I was going to bring up. He's Luka Doncic. He's also a little bit of Dirk Nowitzki, like back in the day, and he's also a little bit of one of Caroline's favorites, Victor Wembanyama, because he's so lengthy and has a wingspan and can, like, he's bigger than most people. Like,
yes,
he's like an amalgamation of all these Texas basketball players that like it looks so good when he's able to ball out in the way that he did. It was really, really impressive.
His body positioning, Caroline, I don't think that there's a better body positioning midfielder in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And also, I think as Spurs fans, we obviously appreciate him hugely, but I don't think he gets enough credit from, like, for example, the media for just the breadth of his skill set. You know, he's really evolved as a player since he's come to Tottenham, because when he first came, I feel like we all had kind of this impression that he was very like a one-note player, you know, who was limited in the kinds of plays that he could make. And he's shown that, you know, I think making the shift to the central role, obviously he wasn't playing there today per se, but it's really helped him open up his game. And I feel like he's become pretty much one of our most essential players, like has to start every game, and if he's not in form, we're not in form.
I think that's 100% accurate. If you go back and look at the Crystal Palace match, like he was totally off it. It was probably one of his worst matches, and we played like shit. Decky as a central midfielder has been a revelation. His ability to be effective as a central midfielder and as a right winger is new shit, and it's
the flexibility
incredible.
For me. It is.
And so
he can play 10, he can play 8, he can play right wing. It's great.
He's had a lot of things happen in the last year of his life that I think have all led to this. He had a baby, and he's talked openly about how fatherhood has helped him lock in. Sweden didn't make the Euros, so while all his buddies were off playing European football, he was back at the lab working. He has been made captain of his country. And if you saw his team talk right before they went out and smoked Azerbaijan like 6-0, and he had 2 goals and set up 2 others, and he was talking before the match, and he said in Swedish, he's talking to his guys, and the clip is in Swedish. He says, "Are you hungry?" And they answered, and he goes, and then in English he goes, "I'm hungry. Let's eat." And I can't wait for the digital Spurs merch on that, by the way, Danny. And we're right around Thanksgiving. Anyhow,
it is time to eat for sure.
It is time to eat, bro.
What's incredible about Dejan Kulusevski? Every time I go, I just glanced at his stats because you guys mentioned maybe the stats are good. They're not out of this world, but you're right. The thing that impresses me, I think, the most, and it's what you started to just allude to, Todd. He's 24 years old. You look at that man and you think he's got to be 27, 28, 29. He's 24 years old. He won't be 25 until the spring. And he's just starting to come into his own as a prime footballer, which sign me up for 5 more years of prime Dejan Kulusevski and let's go win some shit. Because this guy could be a really, really big factor in Tottenham winning some shit over the next handful of years with Ange Postecoglou in charge.
Honestly, dude, he's got captain material written all over him. It wouldn't surprise. And I know that after Maddison and Sonny went off, it went to Vic yesterday. But it wouldn't surprise me, Caroline, if when Son's done, that the armband goes to Decky. I wouldn't be surprised if we lock him down this summer for big money.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's not just at club level too. I think with Sweden, he's become so important to their squad. And on that note, congrats to Sweden for getting promoted in the Nations League, and also Wales.
Brennan Johnson's
with the help of Brennan Johnson.
Yes. Yeah, they had great games. I heard so many people praising Ben Davis too for how important he is to Wales. So yeah, it was a good international break for some of them. Is he the captain? He is, yes. He is now.
And we didn't talk a lot about Brennan Johnson's goal just because it was a tack on at the end of the match, but also awesome. And Timo Werner taking advantage of someone else's mistake and motoring it down the pitch and putting in a nice cross. Good for credit to that guy, because he's obviously going through a lot, and he is what he is. But that's the perfect thing for him to do, is come in late in a 3-0 and tack one on with a brilliant assist. And Johnson got to the spot that he needed to be in, and his scoring streak continues. It was funny. I watched the game not live yesterday, delayed, and came back into the chat before that goal had been scored, because I knew it was over at that point. It was moments left, and Spurs were up 3-0. So I came back into the group chat and actually reacted to that last goal. Man, Timo Werner made these guys look like bitches. Holy crap, that's incredible. He really punked. The Timo Werner punked City. That's crazy.
Bro, and I'm going to give this equation to you again to go with an American football parlance. Timo Werner is Hollywood Brown, man. If you need a long ball, right, and you need to put that guy down the seam in the fourth quarter, that's your guy. Right.
As a Ravens fan, I know that all too well. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, beat cover 2, and then you ask him to run a simple fucking out, and he drops it every time. Anyway, shout to Timo Werner. That is the one play that Timo Werner has, is his ability to get behind the defense and cross that with his left foot. And he did exactly what he needed to do. Put Ederson in no man's land. It was inch perfect, that cross as well. So shout to Timo. And did you see Sonny after the game just come over and Sonny love all over him?
It's what Sonny
Sonny's
does,
a good captain,
Sonny's doing his thing. I love that for him as well. This is the first time since 1956 when it was Chelsea, that England's defending champions have lost 5 straight in all competitions, which is an incredible stat that I found this morning.
That is an
City are
incredible stat. Well
obviously City are obviously going through it. Chelsea, by the way, had 2 more defeats and 2 draws after those 5 straight defeats in all comps. So maybe more bad news for City on the horizon. We'll see. But this, the other really fun stat I found this season, this is from XG Philosophy. XG created in the city of Manchester this season. Manchester United 9.76, Tottenham Hotspur 8.06. So that's what Tottenham have done in the city of Manchester.
Yeah, we run Manchester
in 2 games.
It is Lily White indeed. Just some really just fun stats. I did want to touch on the reaction to this match just briefly because we've gone really long on it already, but I logged in after the match last night and wanted to see what people were saying, and it was more of and I even texted my father, who is not like, my dad is very much like just tangentially a Spurs fan because I am, and pays attention because I do. And I texted him like, wow, 4-0, who saw that coming? And he literally used the phrase Jekyll and Hyde, which I think is apt, but also like most of what I saw on the internet yesterday was bitching that this team lost to Ipswich a few weeks ago and lost to, who was it, Palace weeks before. It's like, this is the lose to Palace. It's the Robin Spurs that I've seen meme going around. It's the rob from the rich and give to the poor, which is what Spurs do. For me, I'm having trouble getting there and looking at that negatively still. And call me happy clapper, call me what you want. Like, I don't care. This is still a team that's growing in my eyes, and it's still a team that needs to learn how to do both. Obviously, they can go on the road to City and win. They can go on the road to Old Trafford and win emphatically. They can beat teams that you wouldn't fully expect them to beat. And they're still struggling to kick on against, insert name here. We've seen it. But like, the reaction for that to be so negative for me is still, and I get it's just the nature of social media. So I'm not trying to change the world here with this statement, but like, that is not the kind of shit we need in this world. And I'm not saying we can't critique and criticize, because we've done that on this podcast as well. But like, my goodness, take 24 hours and enjoy this, folks, because who knows what's coming down the road? Who knows what's coming Thursday with Roma, a team that is massively, massively struggling and could waltz into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday and do something. We don't know. But for now, Spurs just went up and beat City 4-0 on their home field and sent them further into a spiral. And I think that's fucking awesome.
It is. And Caroline, I don't know that anybody can take anything away from the victory that we saw yesterday. And the happiness, I got to watch it with San Diego Spurs. I took all the kids and we went all down there and got to experience that together, and everybody lost their mind. It was incredible. But it's, many long-suffering Spurs fans will describe it as an abusive relationship, and they will truly say, it's you're afraid to hurt, you're afraid to love again, because that the other shoe is eventually going to drop and they're going to hurt you. And we saw it when we went to we beat West Ham, we beat AZ. We lose to Crystal Palace. We come back and we beat City in the Cup. We beat Aston Villa. We lose to Galatasaray.
Not just beat, but beat the hell out of. Like,
yes,
these are not.
And then we come back and we beat City in the league at the Ethiad. We're literally looking at this going, if you're viewing this from the outside looking in, it's like, buddy, you need some help. Can't you see that this is just gonna keep happening? And all I can say is that it's my belief that people can change, and Ange is helping this team get the solace that they need, and we're eventually going to remove this from the fabric of our club. Now I remain suspect of Daniel Levy and his ability to meet the players' needs before international breaks. So I think that trend is probably going to continue. But that aside, I think that we're getting this shaky, this wobble out of the club, slowly but surely. Like iron sharpens iron, and Ange is a master blacksmith. So let's go.
Yeah, I do think the reason that this win felt so bittersweet is because we could have been in third place if we had not blown that game against Ipswich. So that does hurt, like we have to acknowledge that. But I think kind of what Todd was alluding to earlier, if we get some of these just frustrating, annoying mistakes out of the way in the first half of the season and finish really strongly, nobody's going to care in the grand scheme of things that we lost a game to Ipswich or lost a game to Crystal Palace, who that's always a tough game. It is a local rivalry. Like these things happen. So I'm just trying to keep level headed and kind of like you said, Andrew, enjoy these wins when we get them, because it continues to be strange that we perform so well against Manchester City, who usually like they're the bogey team for everyone else, but somehow we have become theirs. And it defies logic, but at the same time, let's just enjoy it.
I'm certainly going to, and that's the case no matter what happens on Thursday against Roma, because that's where Spurs attention will now turn to back into the Europa League. They host Roma on Thursday, and then Sunday will host Fulham, which should be also a very interesting match, because Fulham, despite having lost pretty badly to Wolves this weekend, 4-1, sit only a point behind Spurs. And like, it's all very bunched up in the middle of the Premier League table right now.
Speaking of bunched up, man, I don't think that we can gloss over the fact that starting Thursday, we have 5 matches in the next 2 weeks, and it gets really, but like, so Roma on Thursday, Fulham on Sunday, Bournemouth on Thursday, Chelsea on Sunday.
And then back into
the
Europa League
Rangers on Thursday.
Yeah. Yes. And then back into the Europa League.
These are big time. Did the Rangers, is that Rangers away?
It is Rangers away.
That's at the fucking Ibrox, dude. So, and I think, oh my days. Okay. All right. So we have Chelsea at home, and then we have to go to the Ibrox. I was like, dude, if we have to go to the Bridge and the Ibrox in the same week, that's certainly not something you're going to see in the fucking French league, Kaz.
It's not. I'll answer for that. It's a challenging schedule, but listen, this team is starting to get hopefully a little bit healthier. I don't know how long Romero is going to be out. Van de Ven is slowly making his way back. It's going to be a challenge, but this is the kind of win too that can galvanize. Like, this is the type of win that can, throw you into something way more positive. I know that's like ridiculous to say based on what we've seen from Spurs out of the last 2 months, but it is possible. Like, I do think that.
I think that this kind of brings on the point that we wanted to make sure that we covered on this pod, and at least from my perspective, is that I think that what this win does is it puts to bed the narrative of, Ange isn't a Premier League manager. Ange doesn't have the ability to get it done at this level. Ange's system doesn't work. He doesn't have a plan B. He can't shift. He can't change. I think it's all ridiculous. Of that goes out the window. And because of that, Andrew, I think that it completely deflates the balloon of the Ange out fucking shenanigans.
I hope so. I do, because like that contingent it wants to be so reactionary, doesn't actually recognize what a rebuild is or means. I think you have to give at a bare minimum, you have to give 3 full seasons to a rebuild. And we are not even in the middle of the second of those seasons. So if you want to come to me a year from now and say things don't look good, I'll still say you got to give it to the end of the year.
I kid you not. I saw a post the other day that said the rebuild was last year, and I just had to laugh.
It's not a year-long thing. It's insane.
Yeah, and when you look at our goal totals, and you look at the way that our defensive stats have come back to earth from the ridiculously poor spot they were in last year, and you look at the way that the losses that we are suffering are not. They're losses in which we had our chances to have the game go another way, and we just didn't hit those chances. It's not like we're getting blown off the park. Like, oh, these teams are levels better than us. That we're not experiencing that. And honestly, there were times last year when everybody, when we had like 20 members of the team that were in the injury room or whatever, like it felt that way. It felt like there was a gulf in class. I don't feel that this year, Andrew, even with our rotational sides.
I wanted to double check this just to be sure. Spurs have not lost a match by more than 1 goal this season. Like they have not been beaten by 2 goals or more this season. Like that's part of the reason that the goal differential looks so good. It's, as I mentioned earlier, second in the league to Liverpool, 2 goals different from them, plus 16 for Liverpool, plus 14. No other team is in double digits in terms of their goal differential. Like that's the result of being right there. Like you're right on the edge of, even if you can turn some of those defeats into draws, you'd slowly see that 6th place spot where you sit right now. You would slowly see that turn into a 4th, a 3rd, a 2nd, even.
But listen,
they
dude,
would
if
be,
we're gonna
they would be a
lose,
point. They would be a damn point behind Manchester City had they beaten Ipswich. I know we're playing the ifs, buts, and candy and nuts game,
right?
But like that's where we
What I'm
are.
saying-
We're right on the cusp of something potentially really great.
And what I'm saying, Andrew, is if you're going to have these wobbles, I want them in October and in September, as opposed to February and March and April, May. And so I'm looking at this going, this is the mark of an improving team. This is a mark of a team that's going to be better at the end of the season than they were at the beginning. And that's when you win trophies, Andrew. That's when you fucking win trophies.
That is normally when that comes about. Before we move on to the women's team, do we just want to touch briefly, real quickly, on the Rodrigo Bentancur thing, and then we'll put it away because I don't really want to. We've talked about Rodrigo Bentancur and the racism of it all from the summer ad nauseum, but we did talk about this last week. Rodrigo Bentancur's 7-match ban did come down this week. Tottenham have announced that they are going to appeal the length of the ban. I guess the standard ban for something like this is 6 games. Bentancur was handed 7 games. I think the best that Spurs could hope for is getting a game taken away from it. But as of right now, the midfielder suspension would stay intact until Boxing Day, when he'd be eligible to return. He started serving the ban this past weekend, was not involved for the Manchester City match, is still eligible to play in Europa League matches, which would come up this Thursday. I would expect that to happen just to keep him on the pitch a little bit. But I know that Todd and I kind of shared that I don't really have much of a problem with Spurs appealing, just based on all the explanations given. But Caroline, I wanted to give you a say, because I know you kind of did have a problem with this and would have rather just let the Cubs sit with this and have him serve the full 7-match ban.
Yeah, I think they should have sat with it, mostly because they said they were going to in the first place. So this makes us look really hypocritical to now appeal it, in my opinion. But I also just don't think we're going to win this appeal, because the FA's reasoning was very clear. The rules are very clear. It's obvious why they gave the additional game, because Bentancur basically contradicted his original apology with his defense. So I think it was needlessly prolonging the bad attention on the club, and it was unnecessary.
I think from a PR standpoint, I totally agree with you. I also think that it got out this week that they didn't even fine Bentancur for this incident, which I think is insane. Like you have to punish players for their actions, rather than just saying, oh, we're going to handle this in house. But I the only reason I don't really have a problem with it, I do have a problem with it from a PR standpoint. I don't have a problem with it because of just the numbers 6 and 7 are different. Like, and the standard suspension would be 6 games.
First
and
off,
they gave him 7 for whatever reason.
If I'm not, and I agree with everything that's been said to this point in time, with the exception of the fact that when the club came out and said that they'll stand by whatever punishment was levied by the FA about this incident, it was said before 7 games was the number, which is a ridiculous precedent to set based off of the other incidents that have occurred prior regarding situations like this, which were much more blatant and much more direct and had been handled entirely differently. We still haven't even heard about Enzo Fernandez, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I want to deal with.
Don't think we will either.
Right,
don't think we will.
He's not going to be punished. We know this.
Exactly. And that's to equate these two things. It's silly.
But you know what? That's on CONMEBOL, though, because that's who has jurisdiction over his case.
We have to. But I mean, like Chelsea's an employer. If you want to talk about fining people in-house for terrible things, well, then you should take it up with them. I'm looking at this going, if we didn't fine him, but he's going to miss, at a minimum 6 games, like he's going to miss those game checks. And that's a big fine when you're Rodrigo Bentancur, right? So like, I just want to look at this and say, fucking enough. 6 is a ridiculous, 7 is a ridiculous number. Even 6 is crazy for what the actual situation was. But if that's the minimum, then that's the minimum, and we should take it for what it is. The fact that he still gets to play in European games and we can't just figure this shit out 6 games in a row is silly in its own right. And that's just some FA power play bullshit, which I hate.
Well, and there's only, I believe, 2 European games between now and when the suspension would be over. It also means that he would miss the League Cup match against Man United, which, if you want to try and go win a League Cup, is a big deal. Like that matters as well. But and there's a Liverpool match in there in the league as well. So like it is a miss, but we've talked about it ad nauseum. It's a miss that is fully deserved, and Bentancur needed to wear it, and he's wearing it. So that's kind of where we're at. We'll see if they tack off. If they did remove 1 game from the suspension, he would be able to return for the Liverpool match on the 22nd. Instead, as of right now, it's for the Nottingham Forest match on Boxing Day. So we'll see what comes of it. Want to get into Spurs Women before we get out of here today, because this was a nice return to form as well. Spurs Women went into the League Cup, got a victory over Aston Villa, a absolutely stone cold strike from Sumanen from 40 yards out. This was a match that was kind of tough to watch, unfortunately, because of just the League Cup of it all, Caroline. But I know it's on Spurs Play. That's where I watched it this morning. Granted, I watched it sped up because I knew the result and just wanted to kind of see the patterns play. But what's the takeaway from this? We saw some new faces in the 11, obviously. But what was your takeaway from this match overall?
Yeah, disappointment that we couldn't watch it live. I just cannot believe that in the year 2024, we still don't have streams for all of the League Cup games. Like, I don't feel like this happens on the men's side of the competition, so it's extremely frustrating. But I think, it's a relief to finally get a win, because we've had some rough games lately. And I was happy to see that Eleanor Heaps finally made her senior debut at the club. And by all accounts, it sounds like she did pretty well. Wasn't tested too heavily. So, we might have to put her up against some tougher competition, because Aston Villa did rotate quite a bit from, their usual league starting 11 for this game. I think the other thing I've heard from folks who were at the game, because I have not had a chance to watch the replay in full yet, just to caveat that. But they said Anna Chicky actually had a pretty decent game. And I think we've been, hoping to see her improve over her, limited performances so far. She's not really made much of an impact, but sounds like she had a much better game. And just from the glimpses that I saw, I felt like Ella Morris and Haley Rosso looked really great together on the right wing. And, that could be a really fruitful partnership going forward. And like you said, the goal from Evelina was just madness.
If you haven't seen it, it came right off of a throw in, and just from 40 yards, she just kind of turns and fires to the top corner and puts it away. And it was just like, oh, I guess that's the one goal that's going to happen in this match.
It hit on the underside of the crossbar. And when I went back and watched the replay, Andrew, I was looking at how far outside of the center circle she was. It is not that far.
Not that far at all. Not that far at all. It literally came just off of a throw in. It was kind of very nonchalant, and she just kind of stepped into it and was like, all right, let's try this out. And it worked, and it proved to be the difference. It was really brilliant. Caroline, you brought up Heaps. I thought she looked pretty good. I would like to see more. I agree with you about Chicky as well. Like there was more to her game. This was kind of her level, I thought. I did, like I said, I watched this game, but watched it a little bit sped up just to see the patterns of play, and she was a little bit more involved. This, I thought, more importantly, was good for the League Cup campaign, because you now have the 2 wins from the first 2 in the group stage. Still have to play Crystal Palace, but hopefully that won't be as challenging, because Crystal Palace are just not as they're a lesser team. It is what it is. But this was a nicer little surprisingly enough for Spurs, it was a nice way to go into an international break, because they don't normally win those when they are going into an international break, and Spurs Women got the job done. It was very nice to see, I thought.
Yeah, this was basically a must not lose. And it kind of seems like both teams were playing it that way. It was not the most open game, but I'm glad that, that moment of brilliance from Evelina got us over the line, and we didn't have to go through penalty shootout nonsense, which would not have been fun, with the, implications of that for the group. And I think this will be good for their confidence. I don't love that we're going on international break right now, because I kind of feel like it would have been nice to take that momentum and work with it. But on the other side of the break, we do have a home game against Everton, which is really promising to get a win in the league, and then right back to the League Cup. So just 3 more games before the winter break.
Yeah, it's not a lot between now and the end of the calendar year. It's those 3 games you talk about, the last one being a trip to Brighton in mid-December. So we'll see. Spurs women definitely have some work to do in terms of reinforcements come January, but 3 more matches to get to that point. So we'll see kind of what comes of that. I want to finish the pod today on what I thought was going to be what we were really talking about, because I didn't think we were going to spend 50 minutes talking about a brilliant victory over Manchester City. However, we do have some rebranding that was done this week, and Spurs have moved some branding stuff and have brought back some monograms, some fonts, some different things. If you're watching on our YouTube page, you can see now the new monogram script, which is it's pretty sick. It's pretty great. It very much would go good on a hat. It very much looks like a baseball cap logo, like a New York Yankees.
Oh,
or
New
LA
Era
Dodgers
is licking their
logo.
chops.
They want every little piece of this. Todd, go ahead, jump in. What did you think of this announcement? The timing of it was fucking wild. I'll be honest.
The timing was
very
shit,
funny.
but standard. We know Spurs timing is fucking terrible. It's honestly, for as much as everybody wants to hype up Donna's ability to do PR, her timing sure is dog shit. But I look at what they're attempting to do, and I think about 80% of it is really good, and about 20% of it is shit and should be pruned. We'll come on to it, but these are fine. I think being able to, Andy Warhol the logo is kind of cool. Just keep it moving.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were upset about the fact that they took the words Tottenham Hotspur off of the official logo and are just going with the cockerel.
I wrote a paper on this in business school, Andrew, and the amount of revenue that Nike generated when they dropped the Just Do It or the Nike from underneath the swoosh and just went with the swoosh,
and just
it grew the brand 30x. So
I'm sure that
I'm
it
looking
did.
at
This is the new font as well. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see the new font.
I have to say,
is sus. Go ahead.
This is the worst part of the rebrand to me, because I have found myself going on the website more often in the sort of, late stage of Twitter usage, and it's not very readable, I have to say. It's tough. I don't love the italic all caps that they're using for most titles and things, and then even the font that they're using for just like the body of the articles is not good. So yeah. I'm really not a fan of that. But otherwise, I liked pretty much everything. This green in particular, I don't like, because I don't feel like it screams Tottenham green to me.
It's like a minty kind of different shades, but like the main one is more like a mint green, which I think we have
associate darker green with Spurs, but you know, it is what it is.
I think we're gonna see more of the mint, the lighter types of tones in the near future as well. I've also seen a lot of leaks for uniforms for next year. I believe we have a fully black and gray.
Yeah, I can't wait
next year.
I can't. Now the one that's floating around that you've actually seen is a mock-up, but like the black and gray colorway is confirmed for the away.
And I'm sharing now the kind of some of the different color patterns that Spurs are trying to use. If you're not watching on YouTube, what are you doing? But if you're watching on the YouTube, you see them now. We've seen the blue and yellow patterns a lot over the years for Spurs. We've seen what some people like to refer to as spurple that you see down there in the middle column.
The
that
black
kind
and
of
fluorescent we've seen.
The fluorescent stuff we've seen, but I think we are going to start seeing a little bit more of the teals and the minty greens paired in there.
Yeah, that green and that orange can get in the bin. To be fair, I don't need that shit. And what else?
Look, at least they're staying away from reds and blues.
Yes, thank goodness.
That's what we need.
But let's go back to the icons.
I like the hallmarks. Yeah. I think they're fun.
Yeah, these are the hallmarks.
These are the hallmarks. Yes. No, these are very fun. And,
frankly, I didn't pull all the descriptions of it. I know the one up in the upper right is the seven sisters.
Seven sisters.
There's a lot to it.
Harry Hotspur.
Yeah. The 1882 movement, which I really like 1882, the way that they have it laid out. And if you head over to Digital Spurs Spurs.com right now, you yourself can get an 1882 hat. Not affiliated with the club directly, but also absolutely affiliated with the club. And then the
Affiliated with
castle.
us.
That's right. The castle represents the castle that's on the badge, right?
Yeah.
And Shuban, if he were here, would kick me for forgetting the name of it, as we were taken in the absolute freezing rain to see it properly. But
I'm still thawing out.
Yeah, fair enough. These are really neat, and I think that we'll be able to see a lot of things that actually come from this if the club do it right. I'm interested to see what they do with these. Right, they're fun, but what are you going to do with them?
I'm more just interested to see what they do with this, because this I want on everything. This is, look, I am not a New York Yankees fan. I'm not an LA Dodgers fan. I'm not a St. Louis Cardinals fan. My baseball team doesn't have a cool script monogram logo like this, but I wish they did, because this looks badass. And I would rock this on a hat. I would rock this on a polo. I would rock this on a sweatshirt. I would rock this logo on pretty much anything. And people would look at it and go, what the fuck is that? And I would say, it's Tottenham Hotspur, baby. That's what it is.
And to be fair, this is an updated version of the monogram logo that the club has had for a long, long time. But that has always been my favorite of the types of club logos that we've seen. And the fact that they've kind of updated it a little bit, I can't wait to see the merch on this. I really can't. So the only other issue, the font is the big miss for me. The orange and the yellows and mint and greens can get in the bin, as I've discussed. The font is the big miss. And the other big miss for me is the slogan or motto of "Shine on, you Spurs."
I
always thought it was "Come on." Yeah, I haven't seen
It's been "Come on, you Spurs" from forever. "Shine on, you Spurs" is what they're pumping up, like in the shop and like on some of the. But in Flav from the Fighting Cock was like, "What is friend of the show? What does that even mean?" And I think that's kind of the general feeling.
That sounds like a kind of cheesy, like WSL slogan to me.
God, that hits so hard, and you're
like
100%
aimed at
correct.
children.
Yeah,
I'm being negative, but yeah.
Well, like I said, the timing of the announcement was very weird, coming back from an international break on the men's side of things, and like things are like, oh, we're gonna go play City this week, and do we really need this right now? Like, a lot of people wanted it to come. Like, I don't know if this branding would have worked any better if it comes out Monday morning after the victory over City, but they did it when they did it, and we've talked about it now. And look, we go to Digital Spurs for all of our merch. That's where we think you should go. I'm sure that there's plenty of stuff that you can find at digitalspurs.com. But if you're looking for something with the new silhouetted crest or the monogram or anything like that, that Daniel Levy will sell it to you. I'm damn sure about that. He will get the job done in that respect. All we're selling to you is more Tottenham talk, and we're going to have more for you next week. We've got more to talk about. We'll have the Roma match. Obviously, we'll have the Fulham match to talk about. It is Thanksgiving week here in the States. You guys got any big plans for the Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday other than watching Spurs hopefully demolish Roma? Big meals in play?
Yeah, just forcing my family members who are visiting to watch Tottenham. That's always a joy.
Heck yeah. Moana 2 over here. Gonna Sinopolis it up.
My wife will definitely be getting me into the Moana 2. My wife is a huge Moana fan, and I did remember that is this week, so that is definitely going to be on the agenda as well.
On Thanksgiving, we're going. That's the.
Are you?
Move.
Okay, awesome.
That's the move.
I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that done, but it'll definitely be at some point during the weekend. We will get it done.
Solid.
So that should be fun.
Well,
we'll be back with you guys next week.
Thanksgiving and happy holidays. Yeah. All those folks that are listening. Thanksgiving is obviously more of an American thing than anything else, but happy Roma at Spurs Thursday. There we go.
No question about it. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice to help spread the word about the show, and follow us on the socials, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the places at Tottenham Depot. Reach out to us via email as well. For TC_Kasho, that is my friend Todd. For Caroline at CG Stefko, you can follow me at A Stefka. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.